We are back with everyone's favorite habitual line stepper, Miss Juliet Nichols. I'll give you my thoughts and reactions to the latest episode of Silo right after the jump. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Episode 7 is here, called The Flamekeepers, and we're keeping that train going. I know there's been a couple of intense episodes. Episode 3 was very intense, kept you on the edge of your seat. Episode 5, when you're running down the silo, was super intense. Even though this isn't an action-oriented intensity, this probably is my favorite episode of the season. We get a lot of reveals here, and we get a lot of Juliet now starting to get a bit ahead of everything that's been in front of her. This series works a lot. It's like, yes, we're peeling back layers, and we've done a lot of character development over the first 6 episodes to build, and now we're starting to peel some of those back and do a little bit explaining. Where some of these sci-fi shows, I keep going back to Lost, keep introducing new information, and then like, cool, we're never going to tell you about it. Whereas this one is like, nope, here we go. So we start this episode of Flamekeepers with Gloria, who was our fertility doctor who tried to warn Holston's wife and whatnot about the big charade that everybody who gets the chance to be pregnant not really getting that chance. She's been drugged and sedated, and she's put in a holding area, basically like a psych ward, but it's a long-term living facility, kind of off the grid. And we see her seeing a beach and ocean as far as you can see. She's having a memory that she never really has, but we'll see why she's seeing that in a bit. But she's being drugged, and the reason why she's able to see this memory right now is because apparently they skipped a day. Like, so when she's not able to get those drugs and they keep her sedated and docile, these things sort of flash up. We then see Jules looking at the book, and Gloria's name is the first name that pops up on that list. Gloria, and then you see George, and so on. I think it's only 3 names. So that gives Jules the inclination, like, crap, I know who Gloria is. I need to go talk to her. I need to go have a conversation with her. So she packs up, notices some things. We'll get to that in a bit. She notices some things, and then she heads out. While she notices some things, we pull out that the person behind all the cameras who was watching everything is Sims. Sims is the man behind the camera who's been watching from the judicial closet. When he goes into that janitorial closet, that's what he's going to go see. This begged the question. We get the answer in this episode, but it begged the question immediately for me. It was like, well, hold on. If he's watching all the time, then he is aware of 2 things. One, he's aware of that file being in Holston's place for Jules. And 2, the relic that he looks up, he would have already known that she planted that and didn't have to look up who it belongs to. But then that made me think, oh, there might be some blind spots in this place. They may not see everything. So there might be a couple places where there aren't cameras. All those are answered in this episode. Bless you, writers. So Sheriff goes to find out where Gloria is. She looks it up and sees that she's in a long-term facility or whatnot. She's planning to go see that. So she takes off and goes to that. Meanwhile, Billings has informed her, like, hey, the mayor wants to see you first thing this morning. And she just blows that off and is like, nope, I got to continue going and do my thing. Obviously, she's not telling Billings exactly what she is going to go do. So she goes to psych to see Gloria, and she's getting a bit of a runaround from the nurse there, but she finally does get to go talk to her. But she can see that she's super sedated and not really in her right state of mind. She's saying phrases and words, and the nurse is sort of chalking that up as like, she's crazy. We don't really get much from her. This is all you're going to get from her. And Jules is like, cool, let me take her for a walk. And the nurse is like, nah, that's not going to be possible. And she's like, I'm the sheriff. I can do whatever the hell. Let me take her for a walk. She's like, nope. Judge Meadows' orders says she can't get out. And so Jules is like, all right, cool. Let me go have a conversation with Judge Meadows. As she makes her way to Judicial to go talk to Meadows, she gets a radio from Billings saying, yo, there's an emergency. Come quick. There's an emergency. She shuts that radio off. You don't want to hear nothing about that. Like, nah, I'm good. She goes to go talk to Meadows. Now, Meadows isn't there. Not at the office. Her secretary says that she's sick. She's like, well, will she be back? She's like, she's sick. She's going to be gone a couple of days. Well, she'll be back when she gets better. She's like, okay, cool. Meanwhile, for Billings, Bedlam has just started. He is running down to many levels. I believe it's 57, I think is where they end up. But he's gone down a couple of levels, and a huge brawl has started. Fights, he gets an elbow to the face. People are getting punched. They're trying to detain. They're trying to break up this fight, which this is a place that normally does not have these type of outbursts to occur. Jules comes back to the station with seeing a whole bunch of people with blood and a lot of people getting detained and in bars. And she walks in and is like, hey, what's going on? She's completely oblivious to anything because her radio has been off this whole time. Even when she left Meadows, she still left the radio off. It's like, oh, you're not in the right state. You just don't know what you're doing as a sheriff. And Billings informs her that, a bar was damaged overnight, and these folks thought these were the ones who did it, and so they took it sort of in their own hands to say, we're gonna fight it out. And a lot of that is because we don't have a sheriff. I'm just gonna come out and say it. The reason why people are acting up and doing all this stuff because they don't feel like there's a sheriff in place. And they're not wrong. You weren't there. The mayor showed up, and I had to lie to him to say why you weren't here. And she comes out to say, I'm sorry. He's like, no, sorry doesn't work anymore. Like, we're done with the sorry parts of this. Like, that's no longer an excuse. And he calls her out and says, you've been neglecting your duties. Because you've been neglecting your duties, people are starting to see it, and they're kind of starting to rile up. And he's fed up with it. I'm tired of this. You got to tell me something. If you want me to be quiet and want me to let you do whatever it is that you're doing, you got to let me know what's going on. And at that point, Jules just comes clean. She's like, look, George was murdered. And because that's why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing with the sheriff stuff. I came up here to look to see who murdered George, and then subsequently found out that there are multiple other bodies that were attached to this. And now I'm sort of pulling on their string. And Billings is, okay. And you want me to be quiet while you pull on the strings while your job, your duty is being neglected. And she's like, yeah, I do. Because the person that I thought I loved, didn't really think of me the same way. And somehow I still want to find out who was responsible for murder. There's something that still wants me to pull on the string. Jules returns to the cafeteria to see her starman, which we find out he works in IT, but she's not seeing the stars. And he's like, well, they come out sometimes. They're not always present. And he makes a pass at her. She attempts, it looks originally like she's into it, and then she balks at the situation. Like, nope, I don't want you to kiss me. And she kind of freaks out and takes off. What's interesting is I think she wanted to kiss him. I think now she doesn't trust herself because of what George has done to her. She's like, well, George lied to me and I was fully in love with him. I don't think I'm ready to open myself up to anybody else. Plus, I got too much other stuff going on. So, nah, I'm good. So she gets her stuff and runs off. So then the next morning she goes to go see Mayor Bernard, who has requested her. And he's like, yeah, there's a problem with security. She's like, well, what is it? He's like, well, there's been a threat made on me. And she's ready, like, yo, who's doing this? Like, let me call the wall here. I'll get somebody. He's like, nope. You can't do that. Because the person that's threatening me is Judge Meadows and Sims. They're the ones who's going to threat at me. I was given a veiled threat from Sims that when I sort of protected you and the whole placement of the relic thing, that I was told that if I were to do so again, they would contort the pact in a way that it would get me removed from my mayorship. Thus, it would get you removed and we would have a bit of an issue. So here's what I need you to do, Jules. I need you to find something on Meadows that can sort of put her in a box, put her in a corner, that we don't have to worry about her, take some of the power away from her so that we can continue to do our jobs the way that we are. And he's like, what is it that you're investigating? He's like, nope, you know the pact. Can't tell you that. So for the first time, she's using the fact that he's always said to her, you should be reading the pact. You should probably read the pact, get familiar with the pact. She at least knows enough now, or has been around Billings enough to know, can't tell you that, Mayor. But he does say, cool, fine, whatever. I hope that whatever it is that you're investigating, you get to the bottom of it quickly enough before they remove you. Because if they remove you, and then it's just going to be a domino effect and they're completely back in charge again. So Jules knows where Judge Meadows lives, information given to her reluctantly by Billings in their fight earlier in the episode. She goes to take her breakfast and knocks on Meadows' door. Meadows lets her in, and we can see, and Jules deduces that she's not really sick. In fact, she's got some alcohol, so it looks like some vodka that she's pouring into her orange juice and having a me day. She's taking a me day. Um, and in that, Jules checks her and is like, "Hey, look, what's going on? Like, I need you to let me to allow Gloria to take a walk and go with me." And then she's like, "No, I can't do that." It's like, "Well, it's under your orders. You can do whatever the hell it is you want to. Like, I'm the sheriff. I'm asking you if I can take this person out." And she's like, "Nope, can't allow you to do that." What we see in this scene is that Judge Meadows is a patsy. Like, she's been placed there, just like almost every other person has sort of been placed there. There is somebody over her that she's afraid of. And so she's like, "I can't allow you to take Gloria out because it's not my call. And I need you. It would be best if you stopped doing what it is you're doing. Stop looking into the stop because this is not going to end well." You can tell that she's drinking to sort of numb the pain, that she's kind of just living in this vacant false life. Like, she's allowed to have these relics and have that apartment because she's doing the duties that someone else is sort of puppetry her to do. She has a tear come down her eyes. You can tell that she's trapped and she's afraid. She's like, "Look, Jules, stop. Whatever you're doing is going to upend all of this and put me and you in danger. Just give it a rest." But we all know Jules. She's a habitual line stepper, y'all. She's going to keep crossing that line. She's not listening to Judge Meadows at all. And this actually gives her further drive to say, "Wait a minute, there's somebody over the judge who's putting all of this into place. I need to figure out what's going on immediately." So Sims has a camera in the judge's place. So Sims sees it and it's like, "Well, hold on. All right, we see what she's here. I need to find out why she's here and what put her on this path to come talk to the judge. Let me look at the footage that happened with Gloria." And he can't because it's obstructed. There are flowers sort of in the way that have sort of protruded that mirror. So he can't look at the camera that happened in Gloria. So he has no idea what happened. He tells his people, "Hey, look, somebody get down there immediately and remove those flowers so I can see what's happening in there next. ASAP." So Jules goes to go see her father, who remember is a doctor. He goes to see her father and asks for a favor. He is all in, like, "I want to reconcile with my baby girl." Like, he's like, "Hey, I've been waiting for you to be here all this time. I'm trying to figure out how this meeting was going to go when you finally came back to me." He still has pieces of stuff from her childhood, like has her little doll, her stuffed animal that she used to carry around. He has all of that because he's been waiting for this moment. She wants no parts of that. She's like, "No, no, no, I'm not here for all of that. I'm here because you can help me," which is kind of dirty, but understandable once we find out more about her father, which she didn't know. So that's not really an excuse. She wants him to give her a way to go get Gloria out of there and bring her to a sort of off the grid location. When she seems like she's about to leave, when he says, "Nah, I can't do that. You don't know what you're doing. It's dangerous. People can hear things," which is the first clue. People can hear things. And she's like, "All right, well, I'm going to leave." And he's like, "Nope." Because for him, he still wants to have some type of connection with his daughter. She's like, "All right, cool, I'm going to go do it." So he goes on this thing. He gets Gloria out of her holding and takes her to what we later find out is a nursery, which has no cameras. It's one of the few places in this place that is cameraless. Which he says, he's like, "Hey, this is a place that they won't know," which is an alarm to me immediately. Because like, wait, how does he know where the cameras are not? Something is off there, that he knows where places are. And he also, now double back to what he said previously, wait a minute, people are listening and hearing. How do you know that? Sims is back in the control room saying he can't see where they're at. Nobody knows where they're at. We've lost signs of anybody. He starts freaking out. Like, somebody find out where these folks are. Somebody finds out where Gloria is. Somebody find something. So Dr. Nichols brings a drug to that will sort of help clear out Gloria's brain a little bit faster, because otherwise this would take too long for her to get any information. So he gives her the drug, and it starts to cause a seizure, and that seizure triggers a memory for Jules and Dr. Nichols about his son, her brother, where she used to have to kind of control and count to 10 to get him out of the seizure. So it just sort of triggers that. They have a bit of a connection, more so for him than for her. He knows, like, you know what you're doing. You already know it. So she just completely, routinely goes back into it, even though she hasn't done that for years. And then he kind of just says, "Are you okay?" She pulls her hand back. She's like, "I don't want any of that from you." And then coming out of a seizure, Dr. Nichols is like, "Well, hold on. Let's give her a moment. We can't wake her up because that might make it worse. She has to come out of this alone. Once she comes out of this alone, you can ask away." So he steps out for a moment, and Gloria comes to, and Jules starts going to town and asking her questions. So Dr. Nichols comes back in and sees that she's lucid, and kind of starts to check on her heart just to make sure that, hey, everything's on the up and up before we start asking her questions. In that, he gets his name, like, hi, I'm Dr. Nichols. I'm here with this. And Gloria starts freaking out a bit. She's like, Dr. Nichols, wait, hold on, not Dr. Nichols. For her, it triggers a memory because Dr. Nichols is the doctor that told her she could not, she was going to be pregnant, but wouldn't allow her to have a kid. Said her birth control was out, but it wasn't. He was one of the doctors all those years ago who was lying, which means he's been in on all of this. That's how he knows where the blind spots are. That's how he knows what rooms that are quiet and what aren't rooms are not. He has some type of connection to the overarching group that has been watching and sort of containing people. So he stopped Gloria from having a kid, at which point Julia realizes that she's not going to get anything from Gloria with him in the room. So he pushes him out. And so she wants to have a conversation with Gloria one-on-one. She knows that she's a Nichols, so she's kind of like hesitant to give her any information, which Jules pulls out the traveler's book that she has that had her name in it. She's like, hey, I got this book from a friend of mine named George. She remembers, she immediately comes to her. This is also where she gets that image at the beginning where she's the beach and the ocean. She gets this from there, and that's where she sort of projects herself onto that beach. But she's like, yes, I found this book first. I had this book, and I gave this book to little George's mother. George, at the time that I gave him, was a little George. He was a kid. And I tried to keep up with him as he grew up, because shortly after I gave his mother this book, she was killed. And she goes on to inform her that she was one of us. She was one of the people of the rebellion, if you will, the rebellion against the folks of the silo. She was what has been known and was now be known as the Flamekeepers. They are a rebellion group that was sort of anti-silo and wanted to see what was on the outside and kind of keep the memories of the past in front of them, whereas the people of the silo wanted to quench those memories, and apparently even put memory fading chemicals in the water to help them all sort of stay docile and not remember those things. And so what happens every so often is that people pop up with curiosity and they rebel against, they ask questions. Or sort of sometimes how people with religion ask, like, some of the things don't add up. So let me pull at that string a little bit and just ask questions. These guys are all like, nope, nobody gets asked a question. We're going to shut it all down. And in that, the folks who are curious are labeled as the Flamekeepers, keeping that flame alive, keeping the flame of the past alive, and they want to do everything to take that flame out. So they're trying to erase the past, and anyone who has the memories of that as well. They want to remove them. So that is also why the folks that are curious, those people that have that rebellious spirit, they give them the idea of getting pregnant to kind of keep them docile for another year or two. So give them hope so they can keep them sort of placated, but never actually allowing them to reproduce, because we don't want to have more people that are going to be curious doing things that like Jules is doing, the habitual line stepper over there. They don't want any more of that. They want that rebellious spirit to sort of die off so everybody can kind of just live their mundane day to day. It's at that point that Gloria makes mention that you are Anna Nichols' daughter. And she was a close friend to George's mother. They were working on some type of magnifying glass together. And while your mom was not a flame keeper, she had all the attributes of one. She had the curiosity of one. And I think she would have been one had she not taken her life. At this point, we think, we're still unclear how Jules'S mom died. We get the suicide piece at the end. It seems like in this moment, she was killed and her dad was aware of it and kind of had a hand as to not speaking. Like, this occurred and her dad kind of just fell into place and just accepted that. But it's important to note that Gloria said that the Flamekeepers as a whole felt a loss when Anna Nichols died. So I'm sure they have all the records of all of this, and they know Anna, even though she wasn't in the Flamekeepers, they know that she has that spirit. So that's probably why everybody, specifically Sims and whatnot, have been so adamant to not have Jules in this place, because she is of that ilk and is going to cause more problems than she's worth. She goes out. She got enough information. She goes back to go try to take Gloria back to her room, and she sees her father who's just been standing outside, and he's like, "Look, they would have stopped. I would not have been able to practice medicine had I not fallen in line with what they wanted me to do." And she's like, "So you were giving people false hopes? You were lying to people?" And he says that they told him that this would be necessary to stop genetic disease from spreading. Anybody who came from these folks, there was a reason why that they were being told that they couldn't have kids, and it was necessary to stop diseases from running rampant. Jules was like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm good. So Jules takes Gloria back. While she's taking her back, she's kind of giving off this thing like, hey, yeah, she was just roaming around. Someone just found her, so I'm bringing her back. And I'm going to file a report against anybody who allowed this to happen. But Sims is watching this whole thing. He's like, well, now we see her. Where have they been? Can we find out where they went to? She takes her back to the room, and Gloria asks to see that traveler's book one more time. She wants to see the traveler's book one more time before she leaves. She gives her the book, but when she gives her the book, she notices that, oh, hey, look, my flowers are gone. And Jules is like, what flowers? Like, well, I had flowers in front of the mirror. And then Jules starts sort of piecing things together and remembering things. And she's like, well, she's like, yeah, Holston brought me flowers and put them right there in front of the mirror. And Jules is like, well, put them right in front of the mirror? Yeah. So then she goes to look at the mirror. And earlier, you'd think nothing of this scene is so subtle, but when she passes by her mirror in her room, she sees that the flowers that she had that were standing up in front of the mirror have now been laid down. She doesn't remember doing that. Who knows? She doesn't remember doing that. She's like, well, the flowers are gone. So then she also remembers in a conversation that she had with Holston, she had a piece of paper that read, double the flowers in front of the mirror. Which was like, wait, hold on. There were flowers up in front of my place that are now up, that are now down. There are flowers missing from you. Someone was giving me a note that these flowers need to be in front of the mirror. That means she checks and she's like, I think they're watching us. Like, I think they're watching us this whole time, which now allows me to understand why they didn't know that that file was in Holston's vent. Those flowers were up at that point in time, so they were able to put the stuff in the vent, and then thus nobody knew about it. Jules asks Gloria, hey, what else did Holston say to you? Or what else did Holston do to you? She's like, well, nothing really. He kept spending a lot of time, and she doesn't point to it because she knows that they may be watching. Plus, Jules is walking, but she's like, she spent a lot of time with the vent, at which point Jules takes a blanket and covers the mirror. So then we see Sims with the folks in the control room. They're like, yeah, she just covered the camera. He's like, nope, shut up. And he's like, I can't hear what she's doing because we can't get a visual. Like, I don't know what's actually happening. At which point it's like, be damned with what she's doing. She knows there's cameras now. We got to get down there. So he's like, send the brigade. So he goes down, sends the brigade. And as they're coming down the flights to go to Gloria's room, Jules picks out a bag that has a hard drive and a bunch of other relics that Georgia sort of put together in there for her. To that point, the Gloria is like, you are the last one. She's basically now the new Jedi. She's the last Jedi. But you are the last Flamekeeper. You are the person, and you may not want this. You may not want to have this. Is a lot to put on you, but you're the last one who was curious enough to ask these questions, and you got to go out there and do what you can to keep this flame alive, and keep asking those questions. Down to you. And she's like, and I don't want to do this. Like, your mother would want you to do this. Do what your mother would want to do. And at that point, she tells her, do you want to know why your mom killed herself? Which seems to be the precipice enough to get her out of there. Whatever she's answered, whatever she gives her, seems to be enough that by the time the brigade actually shows up, Gloria's just sitting there looking pretty sheepishly while Jules is gone. And that is how the episode ends. Bravo. That was a phenomenal episode. Like, goosebumps still. Like, I couldn't stop watching. I was like peeling back these layers, her seeing that the mirror is there, all of this, you starting to put pieces together that, oh, her father was in on this earlier. You could catch it at the beginning when it's like, oh, this room has sound, but then you get another piece. Is there's layers to it that it comes on where it's not as like, yep, he's a part of this. It sort of peels itself back, or he was a part of this. It's going to be interesting to see that her mom was a part of all of this. And I think we're going to get a little bit more of why Dr. Nichols and Anna Nichols, the situation that they were in, he was probably threatened for her, and she may have sacrificed herself to save one of her kids or save her family. That might be why she took her life. And if that was why, that's going to give Jules enough to say, nah, we can't let this one ride out. It's interesting to see that Judge Meadows is under her thumb. Like, everybody seems to be answering to somebody else. And all signs point to Sims being the guy who shows up at night, who shows up in the darkness, who shows up in the middle of the night. He also seems to be the one that's, while Judge Meadows is in place, they put her there as a placement, and in front of everybody, he answers to her, but it's clear that this all answers to him. And I don't know if there's somebody over Sims. It feels like they might be too late in this series to give somebody else over him, but he definitely has a lot of control and a lot of puppet. It's going to be interesting to see. Now it's Jules versus the world, and she's the last Jedi. And so, what can she do to kind of get this world back on that up and up to sort of remember what happened on the outside world? I also think that the other Flamekeeper appears to be probably her IT guy that she keeps meeting in the cafeteria. I think if she's able to get to him again, that would give her another person to sort of back up as another Flamekeeper. But yeah, I'm excited to see sort of the rise. I keep using the Star Wars references, Rise of the Jedi, the rise of the Flamekeepers, to kind of get them back, the rebellion back going again. It's always good when you have this anarchy or this dictatorship that's been going all this time, and you get one or two people that rebel, and that's just good storytelling. Like, it's phenomenal storytelling. What did you guys think about this episode of Silo called The Flamekeepers? Just leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.